What's going on, everyone? My name is Iceman. Welcome back to DCS World. Today we're going to do the F-16c, but we're going to do the training missions for the F-16c. I don't need the training missions. I don't need to do any of this because I already know how to do it already. So, yeah, we're going to do aircraft startup first. After this training lesson, starting up the Viper. In some missions, you'll find yourself in a cold and dark Viper that you need to bring to life. While this can be a rather long process, it's described in the manual. You can also enable the auto start function. However, for this lesson, we'll be the full startup procedure. Alright, aircraft startup. Let's do it.
Welcome to this training lesson on starting up the Viper.
Hey, it's Wax.
In some missions, you'll find yourself in a cold and dark Viper that you'll need to bring to life. While this can be a rather long process described in the manual, you can also enable the auto start function. However, for this lesson, we'll review the full startup procedure. Press spacebar when you're ready to get started.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, that was awesome. That jet. Alright, let's do it.
As we go, remember a right click generally positions the switch up, while a left click positions the switch down. First, position the main power switch to battery with a click of the right mouse button. This connects the aircraft's battery to essential systems and provides power needed for engine ignition. Just below the switch on the same panel, verify the amber flickus relay light is illuminated. This is a check that the flight control computer's fault monitoring system is operating. Press spacebar to continue. Now, position the flickus power test switch to the test position and hold it in place with the right mouse button. The 4 flickus power lights next to the switch should illuminate. Returning to the electrical panel, the flickus relay lights we're just looking at should turn off, and the TO flickus and flickus PMG light should be on. This test verifies operation of flight control computer with aircraft battery as the power source. Release the switch and press spacebar to continue. Next, position the main power switch to main power. This prepares the aircraft to run off the engine-mounted generator, but electrical power is not available until the engine is up and running. For that reason, the engine and hydraulic oil pressure warning lights on the right eyebrow and electrical system and secondary caution lights on the caution panel should be illuminated. Press spacebar to continue. On the EPU panel that is just outboard of the main power switch, you'll want to verify the EPU generator and EPU PMG lights are off. Illumination of either indicates criteria for EPU activation are met. The EPU could activate and create hazardous conditions if the EPU safety pin is removed by the ground crew. Turn the main power switch to off and abort the aircraft if the lights are on, although this is highly unlikely as you have gone terribly astray in the procedure already. Press spacebar to continue. Now, let's close the canopy in preparation for engine start. This can be delayed until taxi if you wish, but we will close it now to cut down on noise. Use keyboard command left control C to close the canopy. When it's fully closed, click the yellow canopy handle to lock it in place. Verify the canopy warning light on the right eyebrow goes out. Press spacebar to continue.
Light went out. I'm gonna check something.
Now it's time to get the engine up and running. This can go quickly, so feel free to restart the mission at any point if there's something you want to watch more closely. First, position the JFS switch to start 2 with a left click. That just expended both jet fuel starter, JFS, accumulator bottles and began to spool up the JFS. This also closed the Flickus relays and applied power to the Flickus. The JFS run light should come on when it's up to speed, and engine RPM should start to increase. Now, let's monitor the engine instruments. At 20% RPM, advance the throttle to idle position, right shift, and home. This provides power to the engine igniters and starts fuel flow. You should note airframe vibration and the increase in the fan turbine engine inlet temperature as RPM increases. Monitor those on the right side of the instrument panel as the engine start cycle continues. The secondary caution light goes out at 20% RPM, and the JFS automatically shuts off at 55%. The JFS light should go out, and the JFS switch should return to the off position automatically. At 60% RPM, the standby generator comes online, and the engine warning light goes out. A few seconds later, the main generator comes online, and the standby generator goes offline. All aircraft systems are now running off electricity from the generator and are ready to be powered up. Normal indications after engine start are hydraulic and oil warning lights off, fuel flow between 700 and 1700 pounds per hour, oil pressure 15 psi minimum, nozzle position greater than 94%, RPM 62 to 80%, F-tip 650C or less, and hydraulic pressure for A and B between 2850 and 3250 psi. Verify those on the instrument panel and press spacebar to continue. Now that power is provided by the generator, we have 3 quick tests to run on the master test panel. Position the probe heat switch to probe heat. Verify the probe heat caution light on the caution light panel is off. Illumination means one or more probe heaters are inoperative or failure of the monitoring system has occurred. Now, position the probe heat switch to test. The probe heat caution light should flash 3 to 5 times per second. The probe heat monitoring system is inoperative if this does not occur. Return the probe heat switch to the off position. Press spacebar to continue. Next, depress the fire and overheat detect button. Verify that the engine fire warning light and the overheat caution light are illuminated when the button is pushed. This checks for continuity of the fire and overheat detection loops. Press spacebar to continue.
Fire, overheat, good.
Then, depress the malfunction indicator lights button. All cockpit warning, caution, and indicator lights should illuminate when the button is depressed. Voice message system audio alerts should play in priority sequence. A brief landing gear warning horn should be heard prior to the warning and caution words. Press spacebar to continue.
Pull up. Altitude. Warning. Jammer. Counter. Chat flare. Low. Out. Lock. Caution. Bingo. Soda. IFS.
Now it's time to get our systems up and running and start the INS alignment. This is far easier than it sounds. First, turn on all the switches on the avionics power panel. Each switch in sequence provides power to the modular mission computer, or MMC, power to the store stations, or STA, power to the 2 MFDs, power to the upfront controls or UFC, power to the GPS receiver, and power to the data link or DL. There's also a map power switch, but this is not used in the Block 50 Viper. Press spacebar to continue. Next, position the EGI INS knob to align. This begins alignment of the EGI INS ring laser gyro navigation system. A normal alignment takes approximately 4 minutes to accomplish if the aircraft remains stationary. The knob should be set to nav prior to taxi. Press spacebar to continue. While the INS is busy aligning, we'll complete the rest of the cockpit setup and checks. First, set the CNI knob to the UFC position. This enables control of the primary communications, navigation, and identification functions from the upfront controls. Check that all 3 wheels down lights are illuminated green. This confirms that the landing gear is down and locked, and the micro switches that sense their position are working properly. While you're there, cycle the speed brakes open, left shift B, and back closed, left control B, using the switch on the throttle. Confirm this visually and monitor the speed brake indicator. Press spacebar to continue. Next, uncage the standby ADI on the instrument panel. This can be done by rotating the knob until the aircraft symbol is aligned with the horizon. Press spacebar to continue. On the sensor power panel, turn on these 3 switches. Right hardpoint switch, on if the targeting pod is installed, FCR switch to FCR, radar altimeter switch to radar altimeter. Radar and radar altimeter transmissions are inhibited until the aircraft becomes airborne, but activation of these systems may be delayed until just before takeoff. Press spacebar to continue. Now we're down to a series of checks that may be run to verify proper operation of the aircraft systems. We will start with the check of the engine operation in the secondary engine control mode. This mode is selected in the case of a failure of the engine-mounted digital computer that controls scheduling of the engine fuel flow. First, raise the switch guard and position the engine control switch to SEC. Verify the SEC caution light is on and engine RPM is stabilized. RPM may drop up to 10% from the pry value before stabilizing. Stabilized SEC idle RPM may be up to 5% lower than in pry. Press spacebar to continue. Now hold down the wheel brake for the next part so your aircraft does not move. Snap the throttle to mill and then back to idle when engine RPM reaches 85%. Check for normal indications and smooth operation. The nozzle position should be 5% or less within 30 seconds after selecting SEC. Press spacebar to continue. Now, set the engine control switch back to pry and lower the switch guard. Check the SEC light goes out and nozzle position returns to greater than 94%. Press spacebar to continue. Next, we'll run a check of the flickus. Start by cycling all your flight controls. Maximum stick inputs warm hydraulic fluid and remove air bubbles, making test failures less likely. Then, position the flickus bit switch to bit. The run light on the flight control panel illuminates. After a successful completion of the bit, approximately 45 seconds later, the run light goes off, the bit switch returns to off, and the fail light and the flickus warning light remains off. A bit pass message appears on the flickus MFD page. Other tasks may be completed while the flickus bit runs. Press spacebar to continue. Now we will test a fuel quantity indicating system. We will do this by checking the state of the fuel quantity indicator with the fuel quantity knob in the different positions. Start by positioning the fuel quantity knob to test. On the fuel quantity indicator, the FRAL pointer should indicate 2,000 plus or minus 100 pounds, and totalizer should indicate 6,000 plus or minus 100 pounds. The forward and aft low fuel caution lights should illuminate. The quantity readouts in the other positions should match the aircraft's actual fuel load. After the check is complete, set the fuel quantity knob back to the norm. Press spacebar to continue. Next, let's check the operation of the digital backup software. It is used if problems arise with the primary Flickus software. First, position the digital backup switch to backup. Verify that DBU on warning light illuminates and operate your controls. All surfaces should respond normally. Next, return the digital backup switch to off. Verify the DBU on warning light goes off. Press spacebar to continue. Now we'll verify that the trim system is functioning correctly. Set Trim Autopilot Disconnect switch to disconnect. Use the trim head on your stick to trim at both pitch and roll. There should be no control surface motion and no movement on the trim wheels or indicators. Press spacebar to continue.
Well, I'm not going to do the trim because I don't have any trim. I don't have trim set up on that Viper. I'll do disconnect.
Return the Trim AP Disconnect switch to the norm position. Again, use your trim head on the stick to trim in both pitch and roll. The control surface and trim indicators should move. Center the trim for pitch and roll and use the yaw trim knob to check the center trim for yaw. Press spacebar to continue. Next is to check if the manual pitch override system is working correctly. Start by pushing the stick full forward and holding that position. The horizontal tail should deflect down. Then, position the MPO switch to override and hold. Confirm that horizontal tail trailing edges move further down. Release the stick and MPO switch and confirm that the horizontal tail returns to its original position. Press spacebar to continue.
That worked.
The last check is of the emergency power unit. This check verifies EPU electrical power is available in case of an emergency. It may be delayed until just before takeoff if desired. First, check EPU fuel quantity reads 95 to 102%. Next, set oxygen to 100%. Then, holding down the brake, increase engine RPM to 10% above normal idle. Press spacebar to continue. Set the EPU generator test switch to EPU generator and hold it in position. Check the following lights: EPU air light on, EPU generator and EPU PMG lights off, Flickus power lights on, EPU run light on for a minimum of 5 seconds. Press spacebar to continue. Return the EPU generator test switch to the off position. Return the throttle to idle and set oxygen back to normal. Press spacebar to continue. That's it. You're ready to taxi as soon as your INS alignment is complete, and you position the EGI INS knob to nav. Use the time on the ground to set up your avionics systems for the assigned mission. Things to consider include SMS page and profiles, radio channels and frequencies, navigation data, bingo fuel settings, ALO settings, and any other systems applicable to the mission. We will pick up again at this point in the lesson that covers taxi and takeoff. You may use the escape key to exit the mission now, or continue to explore the aircraft on your own.
Fuck yeah. Taxi and takeoff. Lesson mode starting a Viper that's already up and running. We'll now taxi the runway and take off. Taxi and takeoff.
In this lesson, we're starting a Viper that is already up and running, and we'll learn how to taxi to the runway and take off. Before we taxi out though, let's set up a few more items that we did not cover in the cold start lesson. Press spacebar when you're ready. On the altimeter, verify the current airfield altimeter setting of 30.04 inches mercury is set. You may rotate the pressure setting knob with the mouse wheel to select the new setting if it becomes necessary. We also verify the altitude display on the HUD matches the altitude on altimeter within plus or minus 75 feet. Barometric altitude is displayed on a scale on the right side of the HUD. Press spacebar to continue. Then, select between electric and pneumatic modes with the lever. Electric mode uses altitude determined by the central air data computer, while pneumatic uses pneumatic pressure sensed by the pitot-static system. These should read within plus or minus 75 feet of one another. Set it back to electric mode when you're done. Put simply, the altitude displayed on all sources should match with no significant errors. Press spacebar to continue. Now, set up your anti-collision, position, and formation lights as you desire. The formation lights, or slowing lights, are low-intensity green lights that aid in close formation flying. Position lights are red and green lights that mark the left and right sides of the aircraft. And the anti-collision light is the white strobe on the tail. Typically, all lights should be on and flashing for taxi and takeoff unless blackout conditions are necessary. When done, press spacebar. Time to set up your internal lights. The top three knobs on the interior lining panel control the intensity of the lettering of the panels themselves. The two console and instrument dials control floodlighting of the left and right consoles and instrument panel. The malfunction indicator light switch sets the intensity of the caution and warning lights. You may also enable the flashlight at any time using the keyboard command Left Alt and L. Experiment with these and press spacebar and ready to move on. Next, we'll verify the EGI knob is set to nav. This is done after the INES alignment is complete and you're ready to taxi the aircraft. It should already be set on this mission. Press spacebar to continue. Now we are ready to get moving. Press the nose wheel steering or air refueling disconnect button on your stick or press the S key. This will enable nose wheel steering and allow you to control your path using the rudder pedals. The nose wheel steering air refueling light right of the HUD should illuminate to indicate nose wheel steering is engaged. Press spacebar to continue. To get rolling, slowly increase the throttle just past idle until you have forward movement. Then return the throttle to idle. Gently test the brakes and nose wheel steering immediately after your aircraft begins to move forward. Press Z to steer left and X to steer right. Taxi forward and turn right on the taxiway. Okay, now we're on our way. Max taxi speed in F-16 is about 30 knots, but be sure to slow down to about 10 knots for turns. Heat may build up quickly if the brakes are used for an extended period, so do not ride the brakes to control taxi speed. Use one firm application of the toe brakes to slow the aircraft if you need to. Keep the throttle to idle and only advance it if you need to speed up. Let's turn left and hold short of the runway. Come to a stop as you approach the runway, and we'll make sure the aircraft is ready for takeoff. Apply the brakes and hold right here. A series of last-minute checks need to be made just prior to entering the runway. Some airfields have arm, de-arm areas you may be temporarily parked at to keep the aircraft clear of other traffic. You may also perform these checks while parked on the taxiway, as we are now. Press spacebar to continue. First, set the probe heat switch to probe heat. This should be done at least 2 minutes prior to takeoff if icing conditions exist. Delay selection of probe heat as long as possible prior to takeoff if icing is not expected to prevent overheat and damage to probe components. Next, verify the alt flap switch is set to normal. Then, just inboard the manual trim panel, check the needles on the trim indicators are centered. This is the final verification the trim settings are correct for takeoff and have not been inadvertently changed. Center them if you need to using the trim knobs or the trim controls on your stick. Press spacebar to continue. Now, verify the engine control switch is set to pry and the guard is down. Verify your speed brakes are closed and the canopy is closed and locked. The yellow handle should be down and the canopy warning light on the right eyebrow should be off. Press spacebar to continue. Set the stores configuration switch as required. In general, set Cat 1 for air-to-air loadouts without external wing tanks. Set Cat 3 for air-to-ground loadouts or any loadouts with external wing tanks. We have external fuel tanks and air-to-ground stores loaded, so set it to Cat 3. Press spacebar to continue. Next, we'll verify the external fuel tanks are feeding. Set the fuel quantity select knob to external wing and check the quantity. Wing external tanks should feed first and have lower quantity than at engine start, somewhere just below 2,400 pounds. If a centerline external tank were installed, it would feed first and we have to check its quantity instead. Press spacebar to continue. Set the fuel quantity select knob to internal wing and check the quantity. The internal wing tanks are fed from externals and should be full, or about 550 pounds. Press spacebar to continue. Now, set the fuel quantity select knob back to normal. This allows the automatic forward fuel transfer system, trap fuel warning, and bingo fuel warning to operate properly. Press spacebar to continue. Stow the targeting pod if installed by selecting the targeting pod control page on an MFD and selecting standby. This is done prior to takeoff and before landing to prevent foreign object damage to components. Press spacebar to continue. Then, lower the ejection safety lever. This arms the ejection seat and allows ejection when the ejection handle is pulled. This is delayed as long as possible to prevent inadvertent ejection on the ground. Egresses through other means is usually preferable. Press spacebar to continue. Last, check that the engine oil pressure is reading normal between 15 and 65 psi and all caution and warning lights are out. Press spacebar to continue. At this point, we're ready to take the runway. Go ahead and taxi out and turn left to line up on the center line. Come to a stop and we'll run a quick lineup check and walk through the takeoff sequence. Okay, roll forward until you're lined up with the runway and hold the brakes. Verify the parking brake is disengaged and the anti-skid switch is set to anti-skid. This will prevent the brakes from locking up and blowing your tires if you need to abort the takeoff and come to a stop quickly. Press spacebar to continue. This is going to go quickly, so I will describe the entire sequence, then we will run through it step by step. First comes the lineup check. You will keep the brakes held, run the engine up to 90% RPM, and check for normal indications on your engine instruments. You will release the brakes, increase throttle to full, and engage the afterburner. Maintain track down the runway using your rudder pedals, ZNX. You will disengage the nose wheel steering about 70 knots when the rudder becomes effective. As you approach your takeoff speed, about 170 knots in this case, Pull gently back on the stick to raise the nose about 10 degrees. You can use the gun cross and the pitch ladder in the HUD as a guide. The aircraft will become airborne and start to climb. Raise the landing gear while still below 300 knots and then continue to fly the aircraft along the runway heading. If you're ready, let's go ahead and give it a try. I will talk you through it as we go. Press spacebar to continue. Okay, hold the brakes, W, and advance the throttle to 90% RPM. Check the engine instruments for hydraulic oil pressure warning light off, oil pressure between 25 and 65 psi, F-tip 935 degrees or less, hydraulic A and B pressure between 2850 and 3250 psi. Then, release the brakes and advance the throttle to full. Now, use gentle rudder inputs Z and X to maintain track down the runway. Disengage nose wheel steering, S. We are approaching takeoff speed. Gently pull back on the stick to raise the nose about 10 degrees. Okay, we are airborne. Raise the landing gear, G. You will lose a little lift as the trailing edge flaps retract, so be sure to maintain the climb. Now, maintain your current heading and reduce throttle slightly. Congratulations, you have just taken off in a Viper. We will pick up next time with a look at landing. You can end the lesson now by pressing the escape key or continue to fly around.
Nice. That wasn't bad at all. Beautiful straight landings. In this lesson we go over the basics of landing a Viper in an airfield and visual flight rules for VFR conditions like a straight-in approach. This will also be used for later instrument flight rules IFR landing lesson.
In this lesson, we'll go over the basics of landing an F-16 in visual flight rules conditions using a straight-in approach. This will also be useful later for the overhead brake and instrument flight rules landing lessons. I have the lesson paused so we can set the aircraft up in preparation for the approach. Then we'll land the aircraft and shut it down. Press spacebar to continue. Start by checking your fuel quantity on the fuel quantity indicator. Enough fuel should be remaining to land safely, but too much fuel can lengthen the landing roll and make stopping the aircraft much more difficult. You're fine here, but you may want to burn some fuel off if you return from a mission early. Also, verify no red is visible on the indicator needles that indicate a fuel imbalance. This should be corrected by transferring fuel with the engine feed knob on the fuel control panel before landing. Fuel is automatically balanced under normal conditions, so this should be very rare. Press spacebar to continue. Next, verify the landing light switch is in the up landing position. This will make your aircraft easier to see by the tower controllers or other pilots near the airfield, and provide illumination you need in dark conditions. Also, set the master arm and laser arm switches to off to save the weapon systems. Press spacebar to continue. Now, verify your attitude references match. The pitch and roll attitude on your HUD, the ADI and standby ADI should agree. Left-click the standby ADI knob to cage and uncage if recalibration is necessary. Then, on the altimeter, verify the current airfield altimeter setting of 2992 is set. You can rotate the pressure setting knob with the mouse wheel to select a new setting if it becomes necessary. Also, verify the altitude displayed on the HUD matches the altitude on the altimeter in both the electrical and pneumatic altimeter modes within plus or minus 75 feet. Set the altimeter back to electric mode when you're done, and press spacebar to continue. Next, stow the turreting pod camera if installed by selecting the turreting pod control page on the MFD and selecting standby. This is done prior to takeoff and landing to prevent foreign object damage to components. We have no pod installed for this lesson, so press spacebar to continue. A 2.5 degree glide slope is standard for an F-16 final approach. To measure a glide slope angle, reference the flight path marker on the HUD in relation to the pitch ladder. Now when you're ready, press spacebar and I'll unpause the lesson. After the lesson is unpaused, reduce your throttle and fly through the gates ahead. I'll talk you through the approach as we go. Verify your airspeed is below 300 knots and lower the landing gear by moving the landing gear control handle down. Do this by clicking on the handle or pressing the G key. The trailing edge flaps will automatically lower as the gear extends. Once the gear and flaps are down, check that all 3 wheels down lights are illuminated green on the left side of the instrument panel next to the gear handle. This confirms the landing gear are down and locked. An additional pitch ladder at 2.5 degrees will be added to the HUD when the landing gear are extended. You're on glide slope when both the 2.5 degree pitch ladder and flight path marker are placed at the end of the runway. Press spacebar to continue. Now open the speed brakes using the switch on your throttle and increase throttle to maintain speed if necessary. The slightly higher throttle setting required with the increased drag from the speed brakes will keep you from constantly bumping against the idle stop on approach. This is also one less thing you'll have to remember to do after touchdown. Press spacebar to continue. Keep flying through the gates and reduce speed to achieve the on-speed angle of attack of 11 degrees. This is the AOA that will provide the best approach speed and handling characteristics for your aircraft's weight. Use the throttle to adjust your speed and glide path and pitch trim to adjust your AOA. 2 or 3 clicks of nose-up trim with a trim head on your stick will help maintain you near 11 degrees. As a guide, place the flight path marker on the HUD at the top of the AOA bracket on the HUD. The bracket ranges from 11 degrees at the top to 15 degrees at the bottom. The AOA indexer lies to the left of the HUD frame will differ from other aircraft in that the bottom yellow chevron will still be illuminated when the on-speed AOA is achieved. The AOA indicator at the bottom center of the instrument panel also displays AOA. Use the first part of this approach to practice stabilized on-speed flight. At this point, you should be on speed and on glide slope. The 2.5 degree pitch ladder on the HUD and the flight path marker should be placed at the end of the runway. This is the most challenging part coming up, so exit the mission and try again if things don't go exactly as planned. For now though, continue on your approach. Now, when we're over the overrun, the portion of the runway before the primary surface starts, shift the flight path marker forward to a point 300 to 500 feet down the runway. Gently pull back on the stick to flare and reduce the descent rate, but don't level off. pull the throttle back to idle and touch down with a maximum AOA of 13 degrees. More than 15 degrees during the landing rollout may cause the speed brakes or engine nozzle to contact the runway, so use gentle stick inputs to avoid over-controlling the aircraft. Okay, maintain 13 degrees nose up for aero braking until your airspeed is below 100 knots. Use the gun cross and pitch ladder in the HUD as a guide. Reduce backstake pressure and lower the nose wheel to the runway. Open the speed brakes fully and maintain full aft stick for maximum braking effectiveness. Apply moderate to heavy braking to slow the aircraft and maintain track down the center line with the rudder. Okay, well done. Continue to taxi down the runway and take the next taxiway to the left. Only engage nose wheel steering when below 30 knots unless it's required earlier to prevent departure from the runway. Now that the aircraft is safely back on the ground, it's time to start powering down systems and preparing for shutdown. These tasks may be performed as you taxi. Some airfields also have an arm-de-arm area you can pull into to complete the tasks if desired. Press spacebar when you're ready to continue and we'll have a look at those. First, close the speed brakes using the switch on your throttle, or left control B. Then, position the probe heat switch to off. Leaving heating applied to the probe without airflow to cool it may damage probe components. Also, raise the ejection safety lever on your seat to the up, safe position. The ejection seat is safe after landing to prevent an inadvertent ejection. At ground egress is usually preferable to ejection in a ground emergency. Press spacebar to continue. Next, verify again the master arm and laser arm switches are set to off. Weapons release and laser firing are inhibited on the ground, but the position of the switches is always verified as a safety measure before entering the parking area. Then, begin to power down all avionics systems that are no longer needed. This may be delayed until you're stopped at the parking location if you wish to record data or maintain INS alignment. Also, set your landing lights switch to the down, taxi position. These lights are extremely powerful, so set the switch to off as you enter the parking spot as a courtesy to your crew chief. Continue to taxi to the parking spot of your choice and we'll shut the aircraft down. Press spacebar to continue when you have parked. Okay, when you have come to a complete stop, have turned all avionics systems off, and are ready to shut down, pull the throttle aft past the idle stop. This terminates ignition and shuts off fuel supply to the engine. The engine spools down and the generator drops offline. Caution and warning lights are to be expected. Press spacebar to continue. Next, confirm the JFS run light is off on the engine control panel. A light could indicate a problem with JFS that should be reported to the crew chief. Then, after the main generator power drops offline, check the EPU gen and EPU PMG lights are off on the EPU panel. The lights on may indicate an impending activation of the EPU and a hazardous condition. Press spacebar to continue. Set the main power switch to off. This shuts off battery power to the aircraft systems. Delay this until after RPM decreases through 20%. This delay should allow the exhaust nozzle to remain open and make it easier for the crew chief to accomplish the post-flight or through-flight inspection. Then last, unlock the canopy by clicking the yellow canopy handle and open the canopy using the switch on the sidewall or left control C. And at this point, congratulations, you have successfully landed and shut down the F-16. We'll cover an overhead brake and instrument approach in later lessons. And for now, you can continue looking around or end the lesson by pressing escape. In this lesson, we'll start on the initial approach for an overhead brake landing pattern. This technique is the safest and most efficient way to recover a lot of aircraft quickly, but this is an advanced technique that requires familiarity with aircraft handling on approach. Before flying this lesson, make sure you're familiar with the procedures described in the VFR landing lesson. I currently have the lesson paused. Press spacebar when you're ready to get started. First, let's quickly run through the entire process. I've placed a series of gates that show the flight path used for this technique. As you can see, we're on the initial approach to the landing runway at 1,500 feet above the ground and about 300 knots. We'll brake left over the touchdown point, extend the speed brakes, and perform a level turn until we're flying in the opposite direction. We'll ensure our airspeed is below 300 knots, extend the landing gear, and trim to an AOA of about 11 degrees. We'll continue flying level until reaching a point where the end of the runway is about 45 degrees behind us. We'll bank left, lower the nose, and maintain 11 degrees AOA as we align ourselves with the runway. We'll roll out and fly the rest of the approach exactly as we did in the last lesson. Press spacebar to continue. Now that's a lot to digest, so don't expect this to go perfectly the first time, or even the 10th. Each approach is unique with its own challenges due to crosswind, aircraft weight, runway length, and a host of other factors. Use the gates ahead as a guide, but feel free to deviate if necessary. Focus on rolling out aligned with the runway, on speed and on glide slope every time. How you get there is not as important. Now press spacebar when you're ready to give it a shot. I'll talk you through it as we go. Okay, maintain alignment with the landing runway at 1,500 feet above ground level and 300 knots calibrated airspeed as shown in the HUD. We're over the touchdown point, so brake left. Set throttle to about 80% RPM and open the speed brakes. Fly the brake at about 70 degrees of bank and 3 to 4 G. Relax the G as speed bleeds off and keep the flight path marker on the horizon line to maintain a level turn. Now roll out opposite the landing heading at about 200 to 220 knots. Extend the landing gear and confirm 3 green gear down indications. Start to reduce speed and trim to an angle of attack of 11 degrees with 2 or 3 clicks of nose up trim. Okay, peek back to the left to check your position. Start the turn when abeam the rollout point. That's about when your wingtip is at the end of the runway when viewed from the cockpit. Lower the nose to 8 to 10 degrees and fly the turn at 11 degrees AOA. Now roll out on final and raise the nose to maintain the proper 2.5 degree glide path. The goal is to roll out in line with the runway at approximately 300 feet AGL, 1 mile from the touchdown point. Okay, shift the flight path marker forward to the touchdown point. Gently pull back on the stick to flare and reduce the descent rate, but don't level up. Pull the throttle back to idle and touch down with a max AOA of 13 degrees. Don't exceed 15 degrees or you may scrape the tail. Maintain 13 degrees nose up for aero braking until your airspeed is below 100 knots. Reduce back pressure and lower the nose wheel to the runway. Open the speed brakes fully and maintain full aft stick for maximum braking effectiveness. Yeah, nice job. Engage nose wheel steering when below 30 knots and take the next taxiway to the left. That can be tough to get right, so feel free to restart the mission and try again. Remember, the gates are just a guide, and the path will vary depending on conditions and your own technique. You can end the lesson now by pressing escape or taxi to parking on your own.
Up for controls, alright.
Now let's dig a little deeper into how to control key aircraft systems. We'll have a look at the upfront controls, the UFC, the large bank of buttons, and the small display at the top of the instrument panel. These allow you to quickly access communications, navigation, IFF, and other information in one place without digging around on the cockpit panels. Many of the specific functions will be covered in lessons on navigation and weapons delivery, but we'll get a feel here for the basic concepts and run through some practical examples. If you're already familiar with how the UFC works and are looking for a specific system operation, then feel free to move on. Now this lesson, maybe more than any others, will require a lot of acronyms to be thrown your way. There's simply no way around it. Don't worry though, I'll include enough context to understand exactly what's going on, even if you don't remember what each one means. Press spacebar when you're ready to begin. To use the upfront controls to their full potential, the Cni switch on the IFF control panel must be in the UFC position. If the UFC fails, the backup position allows operation of the radios and IFF using their cockpit panels. For now though, leave this in the UFC position. The UFC consists of 2 elements. You'll use the Integrated Control Panel, or ICP, to call up and manipulate data that's displayed on the Data Entry Display, DED, the small digital readout just to the right. There's more to come on the DED, but for now just know that there are many different pages that can be called up that show us different sets of information. The Cni page is displayed by default and shows you basic information on communications, navigation, and the Identify Friend or Foe, IFF status. Press spacebar to continue. There are a lot of buttons on the ICP, so let's break them down into 3 main functions. First are the 2 master mode buttons. Depressing these selects the air-to-air or air-to-ground master mode and configures the fire control system and displays to support that type of attack. Try it now if you would like. We start in the navigation master mode with navigation information dominating the HUD and the horizontal situation display, or HSD, on the right MFD. So to press either of the master mode buttons, you'll see attack symbology displayed in the HUD and the SMS page with weapons information called up on the right MFD. Depress the button again and it returns to the navigation master mode. Now, there are other master modes, but these 3 are the ones you'll deal with most often. Explore that some more if you wish and press spacebar to continue. Next are the 4 override buttons. These override any other DED page to show you the page that corresponds to the depressed button. Depressing an override button a second time returns to the previous page. The COM1, COM2, and IFF buttons take you directly to those pages. The list button displays a list of pages that can be accessed by depressing the corresponding button from a menu. I mentioned before that the Cni page is displayed on the DED by default. Go ahead and call up some of these other override pages to get a feel for how navigating between pages works. We can return to the default Cni page by either entering data, and more on this later, or by toggling the data control switch, the DCS, left to the return position. So continue to explore this if you would like, and toggle left to return to the Cni page when you're done. Press spacebar to continue. Next, we have several priority function buttons. Like the override buttons, these are used to call up different pages on the DED. However, these do not override other pages and only function when used from the Cni page. The buttons serve as a numeric keyboard once a page other than Cni is called up. We'll look at some of these in more detail in the navigation lesson. So for now, call up some pages by depressing the buttons. Remember to toggle left on the DCS to return to the Cni page before trying to select another one of these pages. So continue to explore that and press spacebar when you're ready to move on. So that's how we swap between the different pages. Once we're there, we also have a few switches and buttons for entering and manipulating data. The Increment Decrement switch increases or decreases values for the field selected on the current DED page. Values that can be increased or decreased are identified by an up and down arrow next to them on the display. For example, the steer point at the top right of the Cni page has these arrows, so the steer point can be changed using this switch. Press spacebar to continue. We've already used the data control switch, DCS, to return to the Cni page, but we can also use it to change the highlighted field on DED pages by toggling up or down, or sequence through different data by toggling right. So try it with the Cni page selected. Keep in mind though, this could work differently depending on the page selected and the type of data displayed in each field. Press spacebar to continue. The Mode Select button is used on some pages to cycle between different modes. On other pages it serves as a 0 key or identifies a negative number. The Enter button is used to accept new values typed into a data field with the keypad. Depress the Recall button once to erase the last digit that was entered, like with a backspace key. Depressing it a second time restores the originally entered value. Press spacebar to continue. Now there are a few other switches and dials on the ICP, but let's look at those a little later. For now, let's run through some practical examples using the controls we just saw. One of the most common tasks will be to change radio frequencies or preset channels. So depress the COM1 override button to call up the DED page for the primary UHF radio.
COM1.
You'll see 2 asterisks on either side of the highlighted field. The asterisks mean that new data can be entered into that field using the keypad. Most missions will have several channels already set to specific frequencies. So let's say, for example, the AWACS controller we want to talk to is on channel 2. Type 2 into the field and press enter. That returns us to the Cni page, and channel 2 is displayed as the selected UHF channel. From there, you can toggle the DCS up or down until the arrows are next to the UHF field. When a preset channel is displayed like this, the Increment-Decrement switch can be used to change the channel straight from the Cni page. So explore that some more if you wish, and press spacebar to continue. Let's say we don't know the preset channel and only know the frequency. Now this works for both radios, but this time depress the column 2 button to call up the page for the auxiliary VHF radio. We typed a channel number into the field last time, but we can also enter a full frequency. So type 13100 and press enter. That returns us to the Cni page, and 131 is entered as the new VHF frequency. Now let's look at one more example to see the other data entry controls at work. Verify you are back on the Cni page, then depress the TILS priority function button. This calls up the page for TACAN navigation and instrument landing system, or ILS data. We'll look at this in detail in other lessons, but it's a great spot to get a feel for how moving around a page works. Many pages like this have several different fields where data can be entered, so toggle the DCS switch up and down to cycle through the available fields. But unlike with the last page, entering the data does not return us to the Cni page from here. This is also one where toggling the DCS right to the sequence position has a different effect. This time it cycles through the different operational modes for the TACAN, like receive, transmit receive, or air-to-air transmit receive. Go ahead and explore this some more if you'd like, then toggle left on the DCS to return to the Cni page. Press spacebar to continue. Let's look at one more example before moving on to the next lesson. Depress the List Override button to bring up the list of extra pages. Then depress the 7 key that corresponds to the CMDS, or Countermeasures Dispenser Set page. This page is a little different because it includes a number of sub-pages. These can be accessed by toggling the DCS right to the sequence position. Try that now. The key thing to take away from these examples is that some pages behave differently than others. We'll cover some of that in the lessons on specific systems, but it's something to keep in mind while exploring the aircraft on your own. Press the spacebar when you're ready to move on, and we'll wrap up with a look at the other controls on the ICP. We also have some controls that don't apply to data entry. First is the Symbology brightness dial at the top left. This is used to turn on the Hud Symbology during startup and to increase or decrease the brightness. Second is the reticle depression dial. This is to crank a fixed backup sight up and down within the HUD. Generally, you'll only see this if major parts of the fire control system have failed and you enable it as a backup. Third is a 3-function drift cutout and warning reset switch. Toggling down clears any warning messages displayed in the HUD. The normal, or center position, allows the flight path marker and pitch lines to show drift due to crosswinds or slide slip, while positioning it to the drift cutout position centers them up in the HUD. Then last, we have a few controls that don't apply to our block of F-16c. These would be used to adjust and manage the FLIR image displayed in the HUD if that were available. For us, these have no function. Press spacebar to continue. That was a look at the upfront controls and the basic concepts behind their use, including DED page navigation and data entry. We also saw a few of the most used functions, like radio channel change. There are many pages we'll see in detail later in lessons covering specific systems. For now though, we have the foundation laid to cover that later without worrying about getting totally lost. You can press spacebar to unpause and fly around, or press escape at any time to end the lesson.
Alright. Quit. AIM-9 LM air-to-air missiles. Oh fuck yeah, we're getting into the fun stuff. This training mission learned how to employ the AIM-9 Sidewinder heat-seeking guided air-to-air missile to shoot down targeted aircraft. Alright, AIM-9L/M employment. Fuck yeah.
Welcome to the F-16 AIM-9 Sidewinder training mission. You are at 12,000 feet in the cell, 30 nautical miles southwest of your home base, Ccrp Air Base. First steps will be to set up your aircraft for air-to-air combat. When ready to continue, press the spacebar.
You're quiet, mate.
To set up your F-16 for air-to-air combat, first ensure master arm is on. It should already be in the correct position. Then press the AA button on the UFC to put the Viper in air-to-air mode. When you do so, note that the right MFD should change to the Stores Management or SMS page. Use the right MFD OSB7 to switch between the 4 A9 Mike that are wing mounted and the 2 A9 Lima that are wing tip mounted. Both nomenclatures use AIM-9 LN. Given the engagements planned, it might be better to use the A9 Limas against the initial non-maneuvering targets, but the choice is yours. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. Now look at the left MFD. First, you will keep the radar in range while scanned for this training. Finally, use the left MFB OSB-19 to set the radar search range to 10 nautical miles. Press twice. You are now ready to be in a rear hemisphere AIM-9 engagement. You will need to accomplish the following steps fairly quickly, so take a minute to review them. 1. Find and lock the target on the radar. 2. Accelerate and fly towards the target. 3. Uncage the AIM-9 seeker. 4. Monitor range to the target using the radar, MFD, and HUD. 5. When in range and the missile is locked, Sidewinder growl in your headset, shoot the AIM-9. When ready to continue, press the space.
Oh, this will be fun.
Note that the dynamic launch symbol, DLZ, on the right side of the HUD and radar is fairly small. This is because both you and the target are traveling in the same direction, producing a low closure rate. However, notice the IR seeker's growl, indicating that it can readily detect the target's hot engine exhaust. Regardless of the missile's IR lock, it is best to close to inside the maximum range versus maneuvering target bracket on the DLZ.
Let's uncage it. And which one's going? Left one. Fox 2.
Fox 2.
Oh shit, am I too far away? I think I'm too far away. God damn it. Yeah, I'm too far away. Shit. I cocked that up. It's going to burn. I just wasted a missile. God damn it. Let me do it this time without yeah, that M9's not going to make it. Yeah, that M9's dead. Next guy's going fast. Shit. I'm at full burn right now. Get that growl out. Oh, there we go. Let's get the tone. Fox 2.
Fox 2.
Alright, he's dead. Goodbye, mate. Get him! Oh, I missed him again. Fuck. These missiles are terrible. Already wasted 2 missiles. Fox 2, get fucked.
Fox 2. Splash the target.
That took forever. Damn it.
Good job. Before you begin the next engagement, set the radar range to 40 nautical miles using the left MFD OSB 20. Also, take a look at the A9s remaining using the SMS on the right MFD. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. Get ready to begin a forward hemisphere A9 engagement. Again, you will need to accomplish the following steps fairly quickly, so review them now. 1. Find and lock the target on the radar. 2. Fly towards the target. 3. Uncage the A9 seeker. 4. Monitor range to the target using the radar MFD and HUD. 5. When in range and the missile is locked, Sidewinder growl in your headset, shoot the A9. Note, the higher closure rate in a forward hemisphere nose-on-nose engagement means that things will happen much faster. Be ready for it. Likewise, the IR secret will take longer to detect the heat of the target. The DLZ on the HUD and radar display will be much bigger as the closure rate is much higher. When ready to continue, press the spacebar.
Oh, he's coming toward me. Fox 2.
Fox 2.
Goodbye, mate.
Good kill. Very good. Now take a moment to inspect the cockpit settings. You set the radar to an adequate search range, at least 40 nautical miles, on the left MFD. You should also step to the next steer point using the DED rocker switch on the UFC. The next target will be circling near steer point 2. Again, use the right MFD SMS page to check the number of Sidewinders remaining. When ready to continue, press the space bar. This time you must decide on the type of engagement, forward hemisphere or rear hemisphere, you will attempt. The target aircraft will continue to circle until you attack it with a missile. As you shoot, the target will attempt to evade the missile and decoy your flares. It will also try to defend itself. However, its air-to-air missiles are older, rear aspect only weapons. Good luck. When ready to continue, press the space bar.
We're not gonna fuck with it. Actually, yeah, you know what, let's do it. Where's steer point 2? HSD. Steer point 2. It's gonna be that way somewhere. This will be interesting. I only have one missile left. Do I have guns? I have guns. So I might have to go for a guns kill. I'm gonna get up right up behind him. Get in the no escape range and kill him. With one missile. Damn it. Oh, I've got 2 missiles left, okay. He's going to continue to circle. Oh shit, he's got flares. Goodbye. Box 2.
Box 2. Good hit. Good
Beautiful.
hit. Well done. You have successfully engaged all the targets and completed AIM-9 training in the F-16. You may end the training now or continue to fly. A few extra air targets can be found near steer point 3.
I don't have any other missiles, so I'm fucked. Right. That was sweet. Got to fire some missiles and kill some targets. Hell yeah. AIM-120 Bravo and Charlie air-to-air missiles. Fuck yeah. This training mission you'll learn how to employ the AIM-120 AMRAAM, an active radar homing AHR air-to-air missile. AIM-120 B and C employment. Fuck yeah.
Welcome to the F-16C AIM-120 AMRAAM training mission. You are at 24,000 feet NSL. Overhead, your home airfield, Kitasi Air Base. First steps will be to set your aircraft for air-to-air combat. When ready to continue, press the spacebar.
This will be fun.
To set up your F-16 for air-to-air combat, first ensure master arm on. It should already be in the correct position. Then press the AA button on the upfront controls to put the Viper in air-to-air mode. When you do so, note that the right MFD will change to the Stores Management page showing AIM-120 missiles are selected. Using the right MFD, OSB-7, you can switch between the 4 wing-mounted AIM-120Bs or the 2 wingtip-mounted AIM-120Cs. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. On the left MFD, increase the radar search range to 80 nautical miles. When you do so, you should see a target about the middle of the display. It is the first air target. You can lock it up now or wait till on pause. First 2 engagements will follow the same pattern. 1. Lock the target. 2. Close the range until at least inside the maximum flyout range. 3. Put the target designation box inside the allowable steering error circle. And 4. Fire the missile. When ready to continue, press the spacebar.
Oh shit, we're flying already. Alright, he's locked. This is gonna be fun. Alright, Fox 3.
Fox 3.
You're right. You're dead.
Splash the target.
Fuck yeah.
Good job. Before you begin the next engagement, set the radar search range to 40 nautical miles. Check AIM-120's remaining using the SMS display on the right MFD. Set steer point to number 2 using the upfront controls DED up switch. Note, it may help situational awareness to check the horizontal situation display. Switch between right MFD pages using HOTAS, stick, DMS, right short presses. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. In this engagement, you will attempt to shoot down 2 MiG-29s in a single pass by by using the AMRAAM's ability to go active after launch. Targets are at approximately 16,000 feet, heading northwest at 430 knots in a line abreast formation. The plan is to lock one target, preferably the closest, in a single target track and launch an AIM-120 while still BVR. You will keep this target locked until the indicator shows the missile has gone active. A counter changes to T counter. Once the first missile has gone active, you will unlock the first target, lock the second target, and shoot an AIM-120 at it. If done correctly, you have 2 AMRAAMs in the air against 2 different targets. When the second missile goes active, unlock the second target and be prepared to engage either target should the first shots miss. When ready to continue, press the space bar.
Oh fuck yeah, this is gonna be fun. Let's go shoot down some targets. Fire.
Fox 3.
3, 2, 1. Alright, it's active.
Splash the target.
Where's the other one? Fire.
Fox 3.
Goodbye.
Good kill. Well done. Now take a moment to inspect the cockpit settings. Reset the radar to at least 40 nautical mile search range on the left MFD. Step to the next steer point 3, using the DED up switch on the upfront controls. On the right MFD SMS page, check the remaining AIM-120s. For this run, an AIM-120C is preferable, but not necessary. Also on the SMS page, use OSB-19 to set the missile to bore. This will force it to use Foresight mode. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. This engagement will be a mad dog shot. An AMRAAM fired in this mode can and will lock onto the first air target it detects, even friendly aircraft. When ready, turn towards steer point 3 and search for the target using the radar. The target is an Su-24 Fencer at approximately 6,000 feet, 450 knots, heading northeast. Once detected, do not lock it with the radar. Rather, maneuver to keep it on the display as you move to intercept it. When ready to continue, press spacebar.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. Get the one on the outside. Well, on the inside, sorry. So this is gonna be Mad Dog mode. This is gonna be interesting.
The target is now within 20 nautical miles. Visually search for it. Once you have acquired the Fencer, turn off the radar using the RF master switch. When the target is within 10 nautical miles, center it on the HUD and shoot an ammo.
I don't see anything. Oh, I see it actually. It's a little quiet. I'll sneak up behind it. This is fucking awesome. Mad Dog.
Fox 3.
That's gonna kill him. Good boy.
Good kill.
Beautiful.
Congratulations. You have successfully engaged all the targets and completed AIM-120 training in the F-16C Viper. You may end the flight or continue to fly.
Fuck yes.
Welcome to the AIM-120 Track While Scan and Link 16 training. You are at 12,000 feet MSL over the coast of the Black Sea, approximately 2 nautical miles east of the bullseye. The first step will be to set up your aircraft for air-to-air combat. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. To set your F-16 for air-to-air combat, first ensure master arm on. It should already be in the correct position. Then press the AA button on the upfront controls to put the Viper in air-to-air mode. When you do so, note that the right MFD should change to the SMS page showing the AIM-120 missiles are selected. Using the right MFD, OSB 7, you can switch between the 4 wing-mounted AIM-120B and 2 wingtip-mounted AIM-120C. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. On the left MFD, change the radar mode from range while scan to track while scan using OSB 2. Next, reduce the scan azimuth sweep to 30 using OSB 17. When you do so, you should notice 2 radar targets. They will start as search targets, small solid boxes, that should turn into track targets, large solid boxes. Once this occurs, press the spacebar to continue. As you fly towards the targets, press TMSR, HOTAS stick TMS right. This will change both tracks to system tracks, large empty boxes. System tracks will be used to guide the AIM-120s after launch. Use TMSR again to bug the closest target. This will select it for an AIM-120 shot. As the bugged target enters max fly-out range, shoot the missile. Fox 3. Quickly press the TMS-R again to select the next target. Shoot another AIM-120 at the second target. Splash the target. Good kill. Well done. Reset the radar search to 80 nautical miles using OSB 20. Also, step to steer point 2 using the DED up rocker switch on the UFC. This will be a Link 16 enabled engagement. On the right console, check that the MIDS LVT switch is on. It should all next, using the right MFD OSB 13, set the right MFD to the HSD page.
On station at bullseye 17948 at
Magic 11
24,000.
and E3 AWACS is on station and providing a Link 16 picture. Finally, increase HSD range to 120 nautical mile using right MFD OSB 20 to see Link 16 tracks. The next steps will start slow, but the pace will rapidly increase. Review the following. Turn towards steer point 3. Examine the HSD. Note the symbol display on the radar. Order your wingman to engage the bandits. UHF comms F1, F1, F3. See which target your wingman bug on the HSD and radar. When ready, press the spacebar to continue. On the radar, place your cursor near the targets and press TMS-R a couple of times to select an open target. When in range, shoot. Press TMS-R again to pick another target. Check HSD to coordinate with your wingman. Shoot again. Good luck.
Contact bearing 300.70. 2. Contact bearing 298.70. Flight. Engage bandits. 97.70. Flight. Engage bandits. 2. Engaging bandits. Springfield 6-1, Magic 1-1, Bra 301, 450 at 7,000 knots. Springfield 6-1, Magic 1-1, Bra 299, 445 at 7,000 knots. Springfield 6-1, Magic 1-1, Bra 297, 445 at 7,000 knots. Springfield 6-1, Magic 1-1, Bra 295, 445 at 7,000 knots.
Splash the target.
Flash 1,
Good kill.
2, flash 1. 3, Fox 3. 2, Fox 3. Tally Bandit, 12 o'clock. 3,
Splash the target.
2,
Good
flash
kill.
1. Urged.
Congratulations, you have successfully engaged all of the targets and completed training in the F-16 Viper. You may end the training now or continue to fly.
Welcome to the Viper ACM and helmet-mounted chewing system training. You are at 2,500 feet MSL over hilly terrain, 11 nautical miles from Gudada Air Base. Two Su-25, just behind the ridge at your 1 o'clock and 10 kilometers, are heading to attack Gudada. They are your first targets. The first step will be to set up your aircraft for air combat maneuvering. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. To set up your F-16C for ACM, first ensure Master Arm on. It should already be in the correct position. Then press the AA button on the upfront controls to put the Viper in air-to-air mode. When you do so, note that the right MFD should change to the SMS page. Use the right MFD OSB 7 to switch between the 4 wing-mounted AIM-9X and the 2 wingtip-mounted AIM-9M. Select AIM-9M for the first training run. When ready to continue, press the spacebar. On the left MFD, change the radar mode from CRM to ACM by first pressing OSB 1, then pressing OSB 19. When you do so, you will notice the radar has gone silent and no rad has appeared on the HUD. The next step will be to set the radar to Foresight mode by pressing OSB 2 two times. Things will happen fast. However, the overall procedure is fairly simple. The radar will automatically lock a bore-sighted target. Uncage the AIM-9. Seeker lock, high-pitched growl, shoot. If it is not the target you want, then simply point your nose at another target and select bore sight again, TMS up. When ready to continue, press the spacebar.
Altitude. Altitude.
Fox 2. Did I forget to mention the targets are using flare countermeasures? Splash the target. Fox 2. Good kill. Well done. Start setting up for the next run by stepping to steer point 2 using the DED up rocker switch on the UFC. The next engagement will use the HMCS to visually acquire, lock, and shoot a target. To make things interesting, the target is a helicopter at low altitude and slow speed, escaping up a steep valley. You will rely on the HMCS. Turn the HMCS on by rotating its knob clockwise. Turn off the radar by placing the RF master switch in silent. You should see no rad on the HUD. On the SMS page, right MFD, ensure AIM-9X is selected and set the missile to Foresight, bore, with OSB-19. Head towards steer point 2, where a valley opens onto the coastal plain. While you're doing so, review the procedure for AIM-9X HMCS bore employment. Look at the target, put the dynamic aiming cross over the target, uncage the missile diamond should latch to the target. Seeker lock, high-pitched growl, shoot. Good hunting.
Altitude. 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 Altitude.
Fox 2. Good kill. Nice job. Step to steer point 3 using the DED up rocker switch on the UFC. Turn the radar back on, RF master switch to on. Head to steer point 3. As you arrive near steer point 3, a Styx missile will be launched at an unarmed ship approximately 52 nautical miles to the southeast. Your task is to shoot down the Styx before it hits the ship. You can employ an ACM mode or the HMCS bore technique to lock and shoot the target.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Altitude. 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 Pull up. Pull up. Altitude. Altitude.
Fox 2.
Altitude. Altitude. Pull up.
Fox 2. Splash the target. Congratulations. You have successfully engaged all the targets and completed this training in the F-16C Viper. You may end the training now or continue to fly.
Alright, SMS Page and Ccrp Bombing.
Today we're going to start dropping some unguided bombs. These can be delivered in several different modes, but in this lesson we'll look at the Continuously Computed Impact Point, or CCIP bombing. We'll also look at the Stores Management Set, or SMS page on the MFDs, and cover items there that apply to all bombing modes. We have 3 BDU-33 unguided training bombs loaded on turrets on Station 3 and 7, for a total of 6. These replicate the ballistics of a Mark 82 and are equipped with a spotting chart so you can see their impact point on the ground. I have the lesson paused, ready to roll in on targets to our left. First though, let's set the aircraft up for the attack. Press spacebar to continue. First, press the air-to-ground master mode button on the ICP. This configures the fire control system and displays for air-to-ground attack. The radar is displayed on the left MFD, and the SMS page is displayed on the right MFD. Next, verify the master arm switch is in the arm position. This allows weapons to be released normally. If the master arm switch is placed in the off position, weapons release is inhibited. The third, simulate position, allows training with all indications you get with the switch in arm, but no weapons are released. Now let's look at the right MFD and the SMS page. The top left shows the operating mode, air to ground, and submode, CCIP. The submode may be changed by depressing the adjacent OSB and selecting a new submode from the menu. You may also depress the missile step button on your stick to cycle through available modes. Try it now if you would like, but set it back to CCIP for the remainder of the lesson. Press spacebar to continue. The right side of the display shows the selected weapons and details about how they'll be released. You can see that we have 6 BDU-33s loaded. If other air-to-ground weapons were loaded, they could be selected by depressing the adjacent OSB until their source code were displayed. Just below that, we have the weapons release profile, with Profile 1 selected by default. Selecting the adjacent OSB cycles between two options, Profile 1 and Profile 2. These include typical settings for delivery mode, fuse arming option, release pulses, impact spacing, and release interval. Changes to settings made while a profile is selected are saved there for later use. These should typically be set or verified as part of aircraft startup, although they can be changed at any time. We'll work with Profile 1 that's already set up for CCIP delivery. Press spacebar to continue. The next 3 options will make more sense taken out of order, so let's start at the bottom with the release pulse, or RP setting. This sets the number of release pulses sent to the weapon stations when the weapons release button on the stick is depressed. For example, a setting of 1 sends 1 pulse at a time, or a setting of 4 sends 4 pulses at a time. More than 1 pulse is known as a ripple release. To change the setting, depress the OSB, type in the desired number of release pulses using the OSBs on the left and right of the display, then select Enter. You can correct numbers entered in error by selecting Recall, or return to the SMS page without making any changes by selecting Return. For now, leave this set to 1 so we release 1 bomb at a time. Press spacebar to continue. Next, we can set the desired release interval if more than 1 bomb is to be released. The timing between release pulses is computed by the aircraft to space multiple weapons in a stick along the ground at the specified distance, ranging from 10 to 999 feet. Again, this is changed by selecting the OSB, typing in the new impact spacing distance using the OSBs on the left and right of the display, then selecting Enter. This setting has no effect if only one bomb or one pair of bombs is released, so let's leave it at the default of 10 feet. Press spacebar to continue. Then above that, we have the option to release bombs either singly or in pairs. With single selected, bombs will be released from only one station. With pair selected, bombs will be released symmetrically from opposite stations, assuming identical bombs are loaded on both sides. The number of release pulses is also shown next to the single pair option, although that's informational. It was already set with the RP OSB below. For this lesson, let's leave it set to single and release one bomb from one side at a time. Press spacebar to continue. Then on the left side, we have the bomb fusing option. This setting makes sense when you consider that bombs are usually equipped with two fuses, one in the nose and one in the tail. Selecting the adjacent OSB cycles between three options: nose, tail, and nose-tail. This is typically set to nose-tail for redundancy unless a specific effect unique to one fuse or the other is desired when the weapon detonates. There are also some special cases where the fuse option changes how the weapon behaves after release. For example, setting nose for a Mark 82 Air or a Snake Eye high drag bomb releases it in a low drag configuration, while setting tail or nose tail releases it in a high drag configuration. Similarly, setting nose for a CU-87 or 97 causes bomblets to dispense very shortly after release, while selecting nose tail uses the dispense settings displayed on the MFD. This will all make more sense once we get into some different weapons configurations and see exactly what this does. Let's leave it set to nose tail for now. Press spacebar to continue. Well, that covers the SMS MFD options typical for all unguided bombs. So now let's look at some unique elements of the HUD that apply to Ccip bombing. Running from the bottom of the flight path marker is the bomb fall line. This will be used as an alignment aid to stay lined up with the target when we're making our bombing run. Then at the bottom of the line is the Ccip pipper. This is the computed bomb impact point. The Ccip bombing mode can be described as simply putting the pipper on the target and pressing the weapon's release button on the stick. But of course the hard part is developing the techniques required to consistently get into the correct position to make that happen. Press spacebar to continue. Now moving back up the bomb fall line, you'll see a small horizontal bar. This is the time delay cue. It's visible whenever the Ccip pipper is outside the HUD field of view. The distance this bar is from the bottom of the HUD is the same distance the Ccip pipper is below the HUD. So as you dive, the cue will drop down the bomb fall line until it reaches the bottom of the HUD, and that's when the Ccip pipper appears. A second post-designate Ccip technique may be used when the pipper is still outside the HUD, but that will be covered briefly in the next lesson. Press spacebar to continue. Not shown yet, but very important, is the pull-up anticipation cue. This is a staple-shaped symbol that provides a visual representation of the altitude required for the bomb fuse to arm, or the altitude to initiate a pull-up to avoid impacting the ground, whichever is most immediate. It moves up towards the flight path marker as the aircraft loses altitude. Releasing a bomb with the flight path marker below the cue will not give the bomb time to arm and will result in a dud. Watch for it as we make our attack, but it should not be encountered in this lesson unless you're much too low. Press spacebar to continue. Now that we've covered the basics, it's time to roll in on the target. Look about 45 degrees to the left, just above the canopy rail, and you'll see the target marked with red smoke. The goal is to place the Ccip pipper on that spot and pickle off your bomb by pressing the weapons release button on your stick. Now this is a deep subject and there are many techniques for getting to the proper point, but I'll describe one way of doing it that you may find useful. Press spacebar to continue. I just marked a point 2,000 feet in front of the target with green smoke. We'll call that the aim-off distance. When the lesson is unpaused, I want you to bank left and pull the flight path marker to a spot on the ground that far ahead of the target. The aim-off distance you choose sets the conditions at release, so this is the most important step to get right. close to the target results in a steeper dive, lower release altitude, and more time to track the target, while choosing a point farther away shallows out the dive, increases the release altitude, but provides less tracking time. I've chosen a relatively close point of 2,000 feet to give us plenty of time to track the target on the way down, but there's no hard and fast rule here. When the flight path marker is at the aim-off distance, leave it there and focus on the bomb fall line. Align the bomb fall line with the target and make small bank corrections with the stick to keep it there. Then, the CCIP pipper tracks up the bomb fall line towards the target. You never want to fly the pipper to the target or hold it on the target using forward stick. Wait for the pipper to intersect the target naturally and release the bomb. After release, you'll fly a safe escape maneuver to avoid the bomb fragmentation. Now, there are many options, but you can't go wrong with a 5G pull-up to a 30-degree climb. Now press spacebar when you're ready to unpause and give it a shot. I'll talk you through it as we go.
Alright, here we go.
Okay, bank left and pull the flight path marker down to the aim-off distance. Now align the bomb fall line with the target. Use the smoothest control inputs you can manage. The CCIP pipper should be tracking up the bomb fall line to the target. Pickle when it's over the target. Okay, weapon away. Pull up to a 30-degree climb to avoid the frag. Worry about looking for threats, not following the bomb. Okay, let's see how we did. Look for the white smoke that marks the BDU-33's impact point.
Ooh, that was almost
Don't worry if
direct.
it's a little off. We have 5 more loaded and more targets to practice on. When you're done, press escape to win the lesson.
That was pretty sweet. It's like directly on the inner ring. That was pretty sweet. Quit. Post-designate CCIP with HD bombs, high drag bombs. Today we're going to look at the post-designate CCIP mode that is used with the computed impact point. It's outside the HUD field of view. This happens most often when bombing in a shallow dock, or when high drag bombs are loaded. We also have a look at high drag bombs and a river release. So post-designate CCRP bombing.
In the last lesson, we looked at CCIP bombing in the SMS page. Today, we're going to look at the post-designate CCIP mode that's used when the computed impact point is outside the HUD field of view. This happens most often when bombing in a shallow dive or when high drag bombs are loaded. I have the lesson paused with the target straight ahead. First though, let's set the aircraft up for the attack. Press spacebar to continue. The setup and displays are identical to those we saw in the CCIP lesson, so we'll run through this quickly. Press the air-to-ground master mode button on the ICP to configure for air-to-ground attack, then verify the master arm switches in the arm position. You should have the air-to-ground SMS page displayed on the right MFD with CCIP submode selected. Today we have 6 Mark 82 Air high drag bombs loaded. These are configured with the BSU-49 tail assembly that slows the bomb after release to reduce the danger of the aircraft being hit by weapon fragments at low altitude. We have a high drag and low drag option that can be set by cycling through the fusing options. Selecting nose configures it for a low drag release, while selecting tail or nose tail configures it for a high drag release. We'll leave it set to nose tail for a high drag release. Press spacebar to continue. Next, let's try something a little different and set the number of release pulses to 6 for a ripple release. This will cause all 6 bombs to drop on one attack run. Unguided bombs are by their nature inaccurate, so releasing more than one bomb at a time increases the probability of a hit. It's also useful for attacking convoys along a road or large target complexes where only one bomb will not ensure damage to the entire target. Depress the OSB next to RP and select 6 from the menu. Then, depress the OSB next to Enter to save the change and return to the air-to-ground page. 6 should then be displayed as the number of release pulses. Set that up and press spacebar to continue. Now let's set the desired impact spacing between bombs on the ground. The target for this lesson is a convoy on the road straight ahead and looks to be spread out over about 1,000 feet. So let's set a spacing of about 200 feet between each of the 6 bombs to ensure coverage. Depress the OSB next to the interval distance. Type in the 200-foot distance we want and depress the OSB next to enter to save the change. 200 feet should then be displayed as the interval distance. We'll leave the single pair option set to single. Press spacebar to continue. Moving up to the HUD, we see the same Ccip symbology as in the last lesson. The flight path marker is at the top, and the bomb fall line extends down to the Ccip pipper. Also note the small horizontal bar on the bomb fall line. This is the time delay cue and indicates the computed bomb impact point is outside the HUD field of view. Last time we were in a dive with low drag bombs and this was not visible at release. We depressed the weapons release button on the stick and the bombs were released immediately. This time, we'll still place the paper over the target and press the weapons release button, but instead of releasing the bombs, that point on the ground will be designated, and steering information will be presented in the HUD. The bombs released when the aircraft is flown to the release point, just like in a Ccrp delivery we'll see in the next lesson. Press spacebar to continue. Now let's perform the attack. You'll see a convoy along the road straight ahead. You'll notice we're not attacking straight down the line of vehicles, but from a slight angle. This is to ensure a miss slightly to the left or right does not completely miss all of the targets. I've marked the center of the convoy with red smoke. The Ccip pipper marks the center of the stick of bombs in a ripple release, so we'll fly it to align the bomb fall line with the center of the target. You'll depress and hold the weapons release button when the Ccip pipper is over the center of the target. Now at that point, the bomb fall line will be replaced with a steering line. Keep the flight path marker aligned with this line. A small horizontal line known as the solution cube will appear at the top of the steering line and begin to move down. Bombs are released when it reaches the flight path marker. The flight path marker will flash when all the bombs have come off the aircraft. Release the weapons release button and fly a safe escape maneuver to avoid the bomb fragmentation. There are many options, but with high drag bombs, we can just continue to fly straight ahead. So press the spacebar when you're ready to unpause and give it a shot. I'll talk you through it as we go.
Here we go.
Okay, align the bomb fall line with the target. Maintain some altitude and be sure the flight path marker stays above the pull-up anticipation cube if it appears. This does not need to be done at treetop level. The Ccip pipper should be nearing the target. Depress and hold the weapons release button when it's over the target and keep the flight path marker aligned with the steering line. Okay, weapons away. Release the weapons release button and keep flying straight ahead to avoid the frag. Worry about looking for threats, not following the bombs. Okay, let's turn back and see how we did. You should be able to see the craters that mark the impact points of the bombs. Well, even if the targets aren't smoking, it's likely they took some damage. When you're done, press escape to end the lesson. Feel free to reload the mission and try again on this or other targets in the area.
Weird, my other bombs did not. Oh. Yeah. Forgot. Unlimited ammo. Right.
Altitude. Altitude.
Alright, Ccrp bombing with cluster bombs. Continuously completed release point bombing mode provides computed automatic release of bombs. We have unguided bombs loaded again for this lesson, but this is the primary mode used when dropping laser guided bombs. We'll also look at two different types of cluster bombs and their functions. Alright, Ccrp bombing.
The Continuously Computed Release Point, CCRP mode, provides computed automatic release of bombs. This is usually done with the wings level, but it can also be done in a dive or with a nose high attitude. We have unguided bombs loaded again for this lesson, but this is the primary mode used when dropping laser guided bombs. This mode requires a target point from which to build the bombing solution. I may refer to that point as the system point of interest, or SPI, as we go. Steering information will be presented in the HUD and you'll fly the aircraft to the release point. The weapons will automatically release at the proper time to hit the target. I have the lesson paused with the target straight ahead. So let's set the aircraft up for the attack. Press spacebar to continue. The setup and displays are the same we've already seen in the Ccip bombing lessons. Press the air-to-ground master mode button on the ICP to configure for air-to-ground attack, then verify the master arm switch is in the arm position. You should have the air-to-ground SMS page displayed on the right MFD. Ccip submode is selected by default, so let's change that to Ccrp. The submode may be changed by depressing the adjacent OSB and selecting a new submode from the menu. You can also depress the missile step button on your stick to cycle through the available modes. You could even select Profile 2 that is already set up for Ccrp. So select Ccrp as the submode and press spacebar to continue. Today we have two different types of unguided cluster bombs loaded, the CBU-87 and the CBU-97. You can cycle between the two by depressing the OSB next to the source code. Try it if you would like, but leave the CBU-87 selected for now. The CBU-87 is sometimes known as the Combined Effects Munition, referring to the type of bomblet that's dispensed over a wide area when the CBU functions. These bomblets have a fragmenting case for defeating vehicles and personnel, a forward-firing shape charge for defeating light armor, and a zirconium ring for incendiary effect, setting fires and denying use of materiel and fuel stocks. The CBU-97 is sometimes known as the sensor-fused weapon. Each bomblet includes a number of smaller warheads, or skeets, that are scattered by a small rocket motor. Each skeet then scans for a heat signature matching that of a tank's engine compartment using the passive IR sensor. When the correct signature is detected, a projectile fires, penetrating the engine compartment and incapacitating the tank. Press spacebar to continue.
Fuck yeah, that's cool.
We've used all the options on the right side of the MFD in earlier lessons except for a pair release. So depress the OSB next to single until pair is displayed. We have CBU-87s loaded on opposite wing stations, 3 and 7, so this will drop both weapons simultaneously. This is not a bad idea, especially for CBUs, because the probability of a kill increases when more bomblets saturate the target area. One bomb on target could be appropriate, or an entire flight's worth of bombs on a target could be appropriate. It all depends on how sure of a kill you want to be. Set that up and press spacebar to continue. One last piece of information unique to this type of CBU is displayed in the middle of the MFD. The BA, or burst altitude, is the height above ground the bomblets will be dispensed. This is sometimes referred to as the height of function. It's set using a dial on the Fuzzy 39 radar proximity fuse on the nose of the dispenser, and the height displayed on the MFD is set to match. We'll use the default setting of 1500 feet. Now, setting the fusing option to nose-tail uses this height, while setting it to nose bypasses the proximity fuse and dispenses the bomblets very shortly after release. The tail setting should never be used, as that will cause the dispenser to dud. Leave it at nose-tail and press spacebar to continue. Now, with the setup complete, let's look at the Hud Symbology. The three key features for this mode are the flight path marker, steering line, and solution queue. We've seen the flight path marker in many lessons already. It's the aircraft-shaped symbol that shows the direction we're traveling. The steering line runs vertically from the top to the bottom of the HUD. It shows the azimuth we need to fly to line up correctly on the target. The key will be to keep the flight path marker lined up with this line as we approach. The solution queue is the small horizontal line at the top of the steering line. This will begin to fall down the steering line about 10 seconds prior to release. The bombs will be released when the solution queue reaches the flight path marker, as long as the weapons release button on your stick is held. Press spacebar to continue. Now let's perform the attack. I've marked the target at steer point 1 with red smoke, although it will probably be out of sight at release. After all, that's the point of this delivery mode. You should see the target designator box, a small square with a dot in the middle, in your HUD at that location. This replaced the steer point symbol when we entered Ccrp submode, and is the point on the ground the bombing solution is computed for. You could, if you wanted, move the location using the cursor enable control in your throttle, but leave it at the steer point for now. We'll look at other ways to update the location with lessons on targeting pod and radar. Press the spacebar when you're ready to unpause and make the attack. I'll talk you through it as we go. Okay, fly towards the target and keep the flight path marker aligned with the steering line. At the bottom right of the HUD, you'll see the slant range to the target in nautical miles and a countdown to release. We have plenty of time. You don't have to make a long approach like this. You can come in from any angle as long as the flight path marker is aligned with the steering line at release. We're coming up on the release. Depress and hold the weapons release button when the solution queue starts to move down the steering line. The bombs will release when it intersects the flight path marker.
Goodbye.
Okay, weapons away. You should see the flight path marker flashing to tell you the bombs have dropped. Release the weapons release button. Use the F6 key to follow the bombs through their dispensing and impact if you wish. If you happen to be at low altitude at release, perform a safe escape maneuver to avoid the fragmentation. Up this high though, take whatever action the threat situation dictates. Press spacebar when you're ready to wrap up.
Fuck yeah.
Okay, we still have two CBU-97s loaded for use against armored targets, and we have some armor set up at steer point 2. Use the rocker switch on the ICP to select steer point 2. Then, depress the OSB adjacent to the stores code to select the CBU-97s. Use the same procedures as before to select Ccrp submode and set the other options to your liking. Feel free to make the attack on your own. You may wish to experiment with different ways to approach the target or different attitudes at release. And when you're done, press escape to end the lesson.
Fuck yeah. Distinguished Flying Cross, hell yeah. Alright guys, that's all for this part. If you liked it, smash the like button like a badass, leave a comment, I'll see you guys next time. Farewell.